I'm not sure how long it's been since I told you I'd stop doing these complaint videos on Fridays, but that's over. I have too much material that I'd lose if I couldn't do complaint videos. So I did a couple of videos this past week, and I got two or three of the dumbest emails I've ever gotten in my life in response to them. And these are not setups. These, I believe, are real people who are emailing me. And it's just bizarre to me. So I'll tell you that the first topic I got a response to that I find really shocking was when I was talking about the fact that British Columbia has some new laws in place that talk about pets not being treated simply as property, especially in a divorce proceeding. So if the couple has a bunch of property and a pet, the pet will actually be looked at separately from the property because pets have a different status in most people's minds than merely being property. And I said in the video that I've had dogs, I love dogs, and that I think this is a good thing because of the fact that most people do think of pets as being more than simply property. I said otherwise, for instance, someone could steal your dog and go, well, what did it cost you? $400. No, here's $400. If it's just property, I can do that. And so most people got that. And I got quite a few comments underneath the video, people saying, I think this is a great idea. I'm glad they're doing this. Wish more places would do this. I got an email from a guy who says, Steve, I enjoy your videos. However, I disagree with your characterization of dogs. And then he talks about how he grew up in the country and his family had dogs, cats, chickens, pigs, cattle, and horses. And he said, when we were kids, one of his relatives raised a calf and named it and entered it in stuff and said, once you name it, it becomes a pet. So the cow did not go to auction with the other cattle, and she died in a snowstorm, and they buried her out back, which I'm not quite sure why any of that applies to any of this because I wasn't talking about cows. I was talking about dogs and cats. But he says, so the moral to the story is that animals aren't people. Anthropomorphizing an animal does not make it a person. Just an animal that we project our human rational thoughts upon and nothing else. So he started by saying, I disagree with your characterization of dogs and says, animals aren't people. I never said they were. I never said they were. And so I wrote back to him and just said, remarkable how you jump from they are property because they are not people when I never said they were people. But it's strange to me that people will hear me say something. And I'm pretty clear, usually, I think, because most people get it. And then somebody says something like, well, but Steve, animals aren't people. Number one, I was talking about pets. Pets is a subclass of animals. I never talked about farm animals. And he actually mentions in his email chickens, pigs, cattle, and horses. I never talked about chickens, pigs, cattle, or horses. And I specifically kept saying pets, not animals, pets. So I don't know if people just hear a part of a sentence and then their brain does a thing and they start thinking about something else or what, but that was the one that was strange to me. Because to suggest that, oh, you bought that dog for $400 and you've had it for 10 years. I ran it over with my car on purpose. Here's $400. We're good. So that's what the case would be. It was just property, dollar value. And that's what he actually said. I summarized his email, but he actually said that quote unquote animals have a market value. And whatever that market value is, all the animal is worth. And I suspect he's the kind of guy who's never had a pet. Or if he did, he was mean to them. But another story altogether. Now, here's the other one. And this is this is going to be the meat of this email. I did the story about the guy who evicted the squatters from his house by squatting in the home while they were out. So it was his mom's home. He was going to sell it or rent it, and a woman just moved into it. So he had his mom draft up a lease that made him the tenant, and he went and watched the house. When the woman who's squatting there left, he went in, changed the locks, and when she came back, he goes, no, I'm here now. Same way you were here, now I'm here now. So I said this is a common situation we hear about in the news, where somebody comes back from vacation or they visit a home they own that's vacant, whatever, and they find someone living in their house. So I'm gonna make sure I get this right here for you. So element 1 is someone else is in the house. Element 1, someone else is in the house. So the people call the police. So step number 2 is police are called. Okay? The police are called, the police show up and they go, well, they're in the house. You're out on the front lawn. We don't know who to believe. There's nothing we can do. It's a civil matter. And they leave. So the police, I'll lump those two into number 3. And the police leave after deeming it a civil matter. So quite often we hear stories where people then hire an attorney, go to court, file a lawsuit, take 6 weeks to eject the person, eventually they get them ejected, and by the time they get in there, the house is destroyed. Everything in it's gone, sinks busted off the walls, toilets busted up, holes in the ceilings, floors, and walls. Things were burned in the fireplace, the safe is missing, everything is gone. Okay? So I said I salute the guy as an American hero who ejected the squatters by squatting in the house that he owned. And in fact, he turned the tables on them, as they say, okay? And I said, at the end of the video, I said, by the way, I've been asked more than once by people, Steve, what would you do if that happened to you? Okay, so let's call that, what would Steve Lehto do? It's kind of like, what would Jesus do? What would Steve Lehto do if that happened to him? And I said, I've been asked what I would do if this happened to me, and this is not legal advice, and I said this is not even advice at all. This is simply what I would do. Got that? And I said this is in the hypothetical situation of someone else is in your house, the police have been called, they've deemed it a civil matter, and they've left. I said, well, I'm locked out of my house. I would go to Gander Mountain, Bass Pro Shops, whatever it might be. I said I would buy a large hunting implement, and I would go back, and I would be inside my own house, and those people would leave. And I said they'd either walk out under their own power or be carried out. And I said, because I'm an attorney, and in Michigan, we have both the castle doctrine and stand your ground. They both kind of overlap. Meaning that when there's a dispute of this sort, one of the people who has the higher moral ground is the true owner. Not the person claiming to be the owner, not the squatter, the true owner. So if there was a confrontation inside that house involving my hunting implement, in court, I would win that argument because who's the true owner? I am. When the police showed up, they go, how do we know that? I'd say, let me show you the documents because I have them. They wouldn't look at them earlier, but I have them, right? So I got 2 of the most idiotic emails I've ever gotten. And these are people who are serious. And I'm not going to say people's names or anything like that. But I got one, and by the way, they always start with a compliment. Steve, I really like your informative shows and insights. Not sure I agree with you on your suggestion at 9 minutes. My suggestion. Remember, I said people asked me, what would I do? I wasn't suggesting anything. I was describing what I would do. But he goes, it's not good advice, legal or not. Well, it's not advice at all. It's not advice. So to say it's not good advice, well, you know, your car is a terrible airplane. It doesn't matter whether you think it's a prop plane or a jet. Your car is a terrible airplane. Well, we're not flying my car anywhere. Better not. It's a horrible airplane. So it's not good advice, legal or not. So the guy starts, after saying he likes my show, by saying something that's nonsensically stupid. It's not good advice. Of course not. It's not advice at all. Then he writes, if the squatters are armed, they can say they were and felt threatened. If the squatters are armed, they can say they were felt and threatened. Great. Great. Guess what? So am I. I would be. Whether they are or not, I don't care. I would be. They can also say that they thought I was a burglar. Well, no, not really. They know who I am. I'm the owner. Because remember, I'm the one who was standing in the front yard with the cops when they were on the porch, and they told the cops they own the place. They know that I'm the owner. They can't, oh, we thought he was a burglar now, even though we saw him earlier and he's the owner. So it says here that it might be considered premeditated since you went to buy the hunting implement. Premeditated? Well, wouldn't it be premeditated then when those people pulled out their hunting implements? I mean, you can sit here and talk about all these things that could happen, but he goes, in the gravest extreme, is Steve prepared? Now, why do you shift gears and start referring to me in the third person when you started off by saying, Steve, I really like your informative shows? So suddenly, you're speaking to my mom or my dad? Is Steve prepared? So you're in the gravest extreme, is Steve prepared to live with taking a life over a house, even if a court clears him? Yes. Yes, that's the whole point. Yes. I'd sleep like a baby. I'd haul him by the feet out on the front lawn, call the police, and go lay down and take a nap. Yes, because remember, I had said the hypothetical is, I come home, they're in my house. All my stuff is in there. I go in the house, and they say no. I call the police. Police are called, go, we can't help you. It's a civil matter, and they leave. I said in that description of what I would do, my choice was handle it myself or call a friend and start legal proceedings. What's going to happen to my stuff in 6 to 8 weeks or longer it takes to get these people out of the house? And a better question is Steve prepared to live with himself for letting those people have his stuff for 8 weeks? No, I'm not. I couldn't live with myself doing that. So there's a great movie, and if I can think of the name of it while I'm talking, which I know I can't now that I said that, involving Ben Kingsley, in which he plays a distraught father who goes to a hospital and does something very, very drastic because of something that happened to his son at the hospital. And Alec Baldwin is his attorney. And Alec Baldwin keeps hearing Ben Kingsley's character talk about why he did something. And he speaks about it with such conviction that you realize that this guy did what he thought was right, and he just did it. And Ben Kingsley is talking to him, and Alec Baldwin stops him and goes, isn't it difficult to know what's the right thing to do? And Ben Kingsley's character goes, no, that's not the tricky part. He goes, once you know what the right thing to do is, the difficult thing is not doing it. Because when you know what the right thing is to do, you're compelled to do it. So if I'm out on the front lawn of my house, and my choices are, go sleep on someone else's couch for a couple months while I try to get my stuff back, or go in and take my chances right now and fix it myself, I'm going in right now and fixing it myself. Now, I wouldn't probably do it by myself. I've mentioned before, I've got brothers. And they'd love to help me on something like this. But is Steve prepared to live with taking a life over a house? Number one, it's not just a house. It's my home. It's got all my stuff in there. And my life would be destroyed without it. So yes, I'd be prepared. I kind of enjoy it. But I simply responded to that guy with the I don't respond to emails thing. And then I got one last night on the exact same video from somebody else. And I wrote down the key points because it was a much longer email. And the guy wrote, Steve, you're wrong. Saw your video, you're wrong. You're wrong. He said, if you told the police that there were people in your house, then they've already got whatever hunting implements you own, right? He goes, the second you tell the police that, they will say, oh, no longer civil matter. Really? Number one, I never said in my hypothetical that there were those in my house. Or if they were in my house, where they might be hidden, locked up, or otherwise. And also, are you telling me that in all of these cases where squatters have moved into homes, not a single one of those homes ever had a hunting implement in it? Not one. This guy actually thinks all you got to do is tell a cop, hey, you know something? There's a gun in there. And suddenly it's no longer a civil matter. Guess what? Yeah, there's one in there. And they say it's theirs because it's their house and everything in there is their house. So he goes, number one, if you told the police that, it would no longer be a civil matter, which is obviously not true. And then he wrote, and this is what is strange to me, he goes, you don't know how to use a gun, so you'd be screwed anyway. You don't know how to use one, so you'd be screwed anyway. Huh? When did I say I didn't know how to use one? And the weird part about that is, and this is something I've mentioned before, people, for some odd reason, watch my videos and assume that I say everything about myself in all my videos. Now, I talk a lot, and many people watch my videos and have picked up things like the names of my dogs, it's in the closing credits, the fact that I've got brothers, what state I live in, what kind of car I own, that kind of thing. But I don't come out here and talk about everything. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I came out and mentioned, because it came up in a video I was talking about, that I actually have a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I'm only mentioning that because one day on camera, I was talking about somebody making a fist, and I went like that. And I had a comment under the video where a guy goes, Steve, you've obviously never trained in any form of martial art, so you don't know how to make a fist. I taught martial arts. I was an instructor. For years, I taught martial arts. I don't know how to make a fist. I messaged the guy back and I got a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I know how to make a fist. He goes, no, in the video, go back and look, you made a bad fist. When I'm goofing around like this, I'm not, let's look at the exact form of the fist and make sure the knuckles are lined up with, what? And it's strange to me that people will jump to these bizarre conclusions because they go, well, I've never heard him mention this. He must not know anything about it. And it's true. There are some things that I've come right out and said, yes, I am an expert on the Italian Hall. I'm an expert on turban cars. I'm an expert on Tuckers. These are things that Douglas Houghton. I know there are some things I talk about which clearly I am an expert on. I've never mentioned using a hunting implement before. And by the way, there's going to be 2 or 3 people in the audience who are wondering why I keep saying that instead of the other preferred words for it. Because there are some topics that advertisers are not happy with, and they're always a little skittish about certain things being brought up in videos. So rather than run the risk of having videos demonetized, I don't talk about them that often, so I just once in a while I tap dance around it. Does that mean I don't know anything about them? No. Does that mean I've never fired one? No. But you don't know how to use one, so you'd be screwed anyway. Oh, okay. So it reminds me again, like the guy who said, you don't know how to make a fist. And then finally, I have to end by saying I got an email from somebody day before yesterday who said, Steve, I'm very concerned. The last 3 videos you've shot, you've been shaking your arm like this. You've been shaking your arm like this. You'll recall I've done now 2 videos, Stop Diagnosing Me and What's Wrong With Me Now, I believe they're called. And the second of them, which I think was called Stop Diagnosing Me, I address the shaking of the hands because quite often, earlier in the video I was doing this, those are my feet tapping. You can't hear it because there's actually carpeting underneath my feet, but my foot's tapping, my leg is moving, and my arm is moving. Okay? I addressed that in like a 5-minute segment in the video, Stop Diagnosing Me. So rather than type a response to this guy, I sent him the link back and said, yes, I know. He wrote me back and said, yeah, I've seen that video. So I wrote him back and said, Did you catch the part where I talk about tapping my feet and my arm shaking? And he goes, yes, but I thought this was different. And I wrote him back and I go, why? And I didn't hear back. So I know these seem petty, but there's something about the fact that people just constantly keep raising these same things over and over and over again. And I know what's happening. I have something like 370,000 subscribers now. And obviously, I just posted a video on the Vault channel yesterday, or day before yesterday, where I said, I just hit 60,000 subscribers. It's a while ago. So there's people who've joined since some of these videos have gone up and don't know any of the backstory on a lot of this stuff. I understand that. But the guy said, I've seen that video. I saw the video. I just thought this was different. Not sure why. So again, this gets us back to all those grave illnesses I've got. And I did mention, I'm not sure I touched on it on this channel. I know I mentioned it on my TV talk show. But I did suffer from a case of vertigo a couple days ago due to an inner ear infection, we think. So for about 36 hours, I was a little messed up with my vision doing this when I woke up. But I'm fine now. So of actual illnesses that you can say I've suffered while you've known me, if you've been here since day one, is poison ivy, poison oak, bronchitis, and vertigo. Other than that, the imaginary illnesses are exactly that. They're imaginary. So that's going to be it for today. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Oh, and by the way, please watch my first video Saturday morning, please. Thank you.